They vowed eternity. Then I saw the messages. My name is Elias Martin Caldwell. I'm 29, a graphic designer in Portland. I'm quiet, reserved, always the observer. I value loyalty, family, and trust above everything. When people betray me, I don't confront. I stay silent. I stay still. But I remember everything. I plan. For a while, my life felt like a blueprint. Clean lines, purposeful design, every detail falling into place. I was 29, a graphic designer in Portland, crafting brand identities in a small studio with big windows that let in the gray Pacific Northwest light. My fiancée, Claire, was the color in my world, her laughter brightening the quiet corners of my existence. We'd been together for 3 years, building a life in our little apartment, where we'd argue over who made better coffee and leave notes on the fridge for each other. I've always been reserved, the kind of man who listens more than he speaks, who finds comfort in the steady rhythm of routine, hard work, family, trust. Those were my foundations. Claire seemed to get that. She'd wrap her arms around me before heading to her teaching job, promising to text me during her break. And she always did. Our wedding was 3 months away, and every moment felt like it was drawn with care. I'd spend evenings designing our invitations, choosing fonts that felt like us, Elias and Claire, forever. My cousin Lucas was my right-hand man through it all. At 27, he was the opposite of me. Loud, charismatic, the guy who could make anyone laugh. We'd grown up like brothers, sharing late-night talks and dumb bets over basketball games. Lucas was my best man, my partner in crime, the one who knew every detail of the wedding, from the venue to the vows I was too shy to read aloud. He'd sprawl on our couch, tossing a stress ball, joking about my boring taste in suits. "Come on, Eli," he'd say, grinning. "You're marrying Claire. Step it up." I trusted his judgment. I trusted him. Life was a steady cadence of love and plans. Claire and I would wander Portland streets, her hand in mine, talking about our future, a house with a workshop for my designs, maybe a cat she'd named something ridiculous. She'd tease me about my obsession with minimalist logos, and I'd laugh, my chest warm with something bigger than myself. Lucas would tag along sometimes, his energy pulling us out of our quiet bubble. He'd drag us to breweries, insisting we try every IPA, his stories making Claire double over with laughter. Those days felt like a vow. We were a unit, bound by loyalty and love. My family loved Claire too. My parents welcomed her at every Sunday barbecue, where she'd charm them with stories of her students. Lucas's parents, my aunt and uncle, called her the daughter they always wanted. It was flawless. Too flawless, maybe. At night, I'd lie beside Claire, her breathing soft and even, and feel a quiet certainty. I wasn't the guy who chased attention or thrived on chaos. I liked my life, predictable, grounded. I believed in the people I loved. I believed in Claire's warm smiles, in Lucas's bare hugs. In the future we were sketching together. I'd close my eyes, picturing the wedding, me in a sharp suit, Claire at the altar, Lucas grinning for the sidelines. It was a vision I held tight, a fragile design I didn't know was already fraying. But there were moments, even then, that I missed. The way Claire's phone lit up late at night, how she'd angle it away from me. The way Lucas's jokes sometimes landed too sharp, too quick. I didn't question it. I didn't push. I was too busy perfecting my blueprint, too busy believing in forever. I thought we were unbreakable. I was wrong. I thought we were unbreakable. I was wrong. The weeks after our engagement party carried a subtle shift, like a pencil sketch smudged at the edges. I was still piecing together wedding plans in our Portland apartment, my days filled with client deadlines and Claire's warm presence. She'd hum while grading papers at our kitchen table, her blonde hair catching the lamplight, and I'd feel that familiar pull, love, steady and sure. Lucas was still around, too, dropping by with takeout or dragging us to trivia nights, his laughter loud enough to drown out any quiet doubts. But something was off, a faint discord in the rhythm of our lives, and I couldn't pin it down. It started small. Claire's phone buzzed more often, her fingers quick to silence it. She'd smile when I glanced over, saying it was just a parent email about one of her students, but her eyes darted away a fraction too fast. I didn't press. I wasn't the type to demand answers or stir up conflict. I told myself it was wedding stress. Venues to confirm, guest list to wrangle. We were all stretched thin. But then there was Lucas. He'd always been larger than life, his stories spilling over like beer foam. But now his grins felt rehearsed. At a family barbecue, I caught him watching Clara beat too long as she tossed a salad, her laugh ringing out. His eyes flicked to me, and he clapped my shoulder, too hard, joking about my groom jitters. I laughed it off, but the moment lingered, a splinter under my skin. The barbecue wasn't the only time. At a coffee shop meetup to discuss the wedding playlist, Lucas showed up late, his hair mussed, his usual swagger dialed up. Claire was already there, scrolling her phone, and when he slid into the booth, their knees brushed. It was nothing, I told myself. Our table was cramped, the shop crowded. But her cheeks flushed, and she tucked her hair behind her ear, a nervous tic I knew too well. Lucas launched into a story about a work prank, his hands animated, but his eyes kept drifting to her. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness sharp on my tongue, and nodded along. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to seem paranoid. But the air felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. That night, back in our apartment, Claire curled against me on the couch, her head on my chest as we watched some forgettable show. Her warmth was real, her touch familiar, but her phone buzzed again on the coffee table. She didn't move to check it, and I didn't comment. I stared at the screen, the laugh track jarring, and felt a knot tighten in my gut. I thought about Lucas's too loud laugh, Claire's quick glances, the way they'd both seemed to orbit each other at the barbecue. I pushed the thoughts down, deep, where they couldn't take root. I love them both. They love me. Doubt was a crack I could ignore, a flaw in the design I could work around. But as I lay awake later, Claire's breathing soft beside me, the unease grew. I replayed the moments, the glances, the silences, the phone that never stopped buzzing. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that my quiet life with Claire and Lucas was still intact. I wasn't ready to face the alternative. Not yet. I closed my eyes, willing the blueprint of our future to hold, but the lines were starting to blur. Something felt wrong. I didn't ask. I watched. The world I'd built with Claire and Lucas didn't just crack, it shattered. It was a Tuesday evening, rain tapping the windows of our Portland apartment, the kind of quiet night where I'd usually sketch while Claire graded papers. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter, face up, forgotten while she stepped out to grab wine from the corner store. I wasn't the type to snoop. I trusted her. But the screen lit up, a message flashing. Miss you already. No name, just a number. My stomach twisted, that splinter of doubt from weeks ago, now a jagged edge. I glanced at the door, then back at the phone. My fingers moved before my mind caught up. The passcode was our anniversary. Ironic now. The messages opened. A thread with Lucas's number. Unmistakable. Words burned into me. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. Elias doesn't suspect a thing. Time-stamped late nights. Days I'd been to the studio. Moments I thought we were all just busy with wedding plans. My hand shook as I scrolled. Screenshots of their chats. Emojis. Promises. They'd been meeting in secret, tangled in each other, while I designed our invitations, while I trusted them both. My cousin, my best man. My fiancé, my future. The betrayal was a blade, clean and deep. I set the phone down exactly as I'd found it, my breath shallow. Claire's key turned in the lock, and she walked in, smiling, a bottle of Pinot in hand. Got your favorite, she said, her voice light, unaware of the storm in my chest. I nodded, my face a mask, and poured us glasses while she chattered about her day. Every word she spoke felt like a lie, her laughter a mockery. I sipped the wine, its bitterness mirroring the taste in my mouth. Lucas texted her again. I saw the screen glow, but she didn't check it, her eyes on me, playing the part of the loving fiancé. I played along, too, my voice steady, my smile practiced. I had to. That night, I lay beside her, her body warm against mine, but I was miles away. My mind replayed the messages, each one a nail in the coffin of our future. Lucas, who'd been my brother in all but blood, had crossed a line I couldn't unsee. Claire, who'd promised forever, had built a secret life behind my back. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to break something, but I didn't. I wasn't that man. I was the one who stayed quiet, who watched, who planned. My anger wasn't loud. It was cold, precise, a tool I'd sharpen later. For now, I needed to breathe, to keep the facade, to let them think they'd won. The next day, I saw Lucas at a wedding vendor meeting. He grinned, slapped my back, talked about the bachelor party like nothing had changed. His eyes were clear, his lies effortless. Claire joined us, her hand slipping into mine, her laugh bright as she debated table linens. They were so good at it, so convincing. I smiled, nodded agreed. But inside, I was cataloging every word, every glance, every moment they thought they'd hidden. The wedding was 2 months away, and they believed they'd carry their secret to the altar. They were wrong. That day, something broke inside me. The days after I found the text were a study in control. The Portland rain kept falling, a gray curtain over my world, but I moved through it like nothing had changed. Claire kissed me goodbye each morning, her lips soft, her lies softer. Lucas texted me about tux fittings, his messages casual, as if he hadn't buried a knife in my back. I answered them both, calm, brief, the perfect fiancé, the perfect cousin. But inside I was hollow, a house gutted by fire, only the facade still standing. The betrayal had carved out something vital, leaving a void where trust used to be. I went through the motions. At the studio, I tweaked logos, my hands steady on a mouse, while my mind churned. At home, I cooked dinner with Claire, her chatter about her students washing over me like static. She'd lean against the counter, sipping wine, unaware that I saw every word as a performance. I'd smile, nod, ask about her day, my voice even. She didn't notice the distance in my eyes. Lucas came over one evening, all grins, suggesting we finalize the guest list. He sprawled on our couch, tossing out names, while Claire laughed at his jokes. I sat across from them, a coffee mug in my hands, watching their ease, their shared glances, their secret hidden in plain sight. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. Every interaction was a test of my restraint. At a suit fitting, Lucas stood beside me, joking about how I'd clean up nice for Claire. The tailor measured my shoulders, and I stared at my reflection, seeing a man I barely recognized. I wanted to grab Lucas, demand why. Why her, why me, why now? But I didn't. I thanked the tailor, agreed to Lucas's choice of navy blue, and walked out into the drizzle. Claire called later, asking my opinion on centerpieces. I said peonies were fine, my tone neutral, while my chest ached with the weight of her betrayal. I wasn't sleeping well, my nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying their messages in my head, but I never let it show. My family noticed nothing. At Sunday dinner with my parents, Claire was her charming self, helping my mom with dessert, while Lucas told stories that made my dad laugh. I passed the mashed potatoes, my face a mask of calm. My aunt and uncle were there, too, calling Claire family already. I nodded, my jaw tight, and excused myself to refill my water. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter, breathing slow, steadying the storm inside. I wasn't ready to unravel. Not yet. I needed to be the Elias they knew, quiet, dependable, unshaken. But every moment with Claire and Lucas was a reminder of what they'd done, a cut that bled fresh each time they smiled. I started keeping a mental ledger, not of their lies, but of my own silence. Every time I didn't confront them, every time I swallowed the pain, I added to it. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, sharper. I began to see the wedding not as a celebration, but as a stage. They thought they could play their parts, walk away clean. I let them believe it for now. The rehearsal dinner was 6 weeks away, and I had time. I'd always been patient. I'd always been the one who waited. They laughed. I just nodded. The void inside me didn't stay empty. It hardened, sharpening into something precise, like a blade honed in silence. The Portland rain still fell, but it no longer blurred my vision. I moved through my days with purpose, my face a mask of calm while my mind worked, meticulous and cold. Claire and Lucas thought they'd gotten away with it, their secrets safe as they laughed over wedding plans, but I was no longer the man who trusted blindly. I was the man who planned, and the rehearsal dinner, 5 weeks away, would be my canvas. I began small, deliberate. At my studio, I backed up Claire's phone when she left it charging, saving screenshots of her texts with Lucas to a hidden folder on my laptop. I didn't read them again. I didn't need to. The words were seared into me, fuel for what was coming. I started noting their patterns. When Claire said she was grading late, when Lucas claimed he was stuck at work, I cross-checked their excuses against the timestamps in their messages, building a timeline no one else could see. At night, while Claire slept, I'd sit at my desk, sketching not designs but strategies, mapping out every step with the care I'd once put into our invitations. I wove my plan into the wedding itself, subtle enough to go unnoticed. I suggested a slideshow for the rehearsal dinner, a tribute to our journey, and Claire loved the idea, oblivious to my intent. I spent hours curating photos, our first date, family trips, moments with Lucas, but I laced it with evidence. A screenshot of their texts, blurred just enough to raise questions, time to flash during my toast. I contacted the venue, requesting control of the projector, claiming it was for technical quality. The manager agreed, no questions asked. I even adjusted the guest list, ensuring key family members, ones who'd see through Claire and Lucas's charm, would be seated front and center. Every move was calculated, invisible. When Claire asked me to pick up her dress from the boutique, I used the trip to visit a print shop, creating a single, discreet handout for the dinner, a wedding program with a hidden page, a printed text exchange, anonymized but damning, slipped into select programs. Lucas stopped by one evening, tossing out ideas for the bachelor party, and I nodded, my voice steady, suggesting we keep it low-key. He didn't notice my eyes linger on his phone, didn't see me memorize the way he typed. I was gathering pieces, building a puzzle they'd only see when it was complete. I tested my restraint daily. Claire would kiss me, her warmth a lie, and I'd return it, my lips tight. Lucas would joke about being my best man, and I'd laugh, the sound hollow but convincing. They thought I was still theirs, trusting, quiet Elias. But I was rewriting the story. I didn't need their confessions or their guilt. I needed precision, timing, the moment when their world would tilt, and I'd stand untouched. The rehearsal dinner was coming, and with it, the end of their charade. I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient. I was ready. I didn't respond. I remembered. The rehearsal dinner arrived, a stage set under the soft glow of chandeliers in a Portland banquet hall. I stood at the head of the room, a glass of champagne in hand, my suit crisp, my smile practiced. Claire sat to my left, radiant in a cream dress, her laughter bright as she leaned toward Lucas, who was all charm in his tailored blazer. The room buzzed with family and friends, their faces warm with anticipation, oblivious to the truth I'd carried for weeks. My plan was ready, every piece in place, and I felt no tremor, only a calm certainty, like a designer finalizing a perfect layout. The slideshow began as dessert was served, projected on a screen behind us. Photos flickered, Claire and me at the coast, Lucas and me as kids, our families at Christmas. Guests cooed, their smiles soft, but I watched Claire and Lucas, their ease unshaken. Then it came, a slide I'd buried mid-sequence, a blurred screenshot of their texts. The words "last night was incredible," just legible enough to stir murmurs. Claire's fork paused mid-air, her eyes darting to Lucas. He shifted, his grin faltering. The slide vanished, replaced by another photo of us, but the room's warmth had cooled, whispers spreading like ripples. I stood again my toast, my voice steady, almost gentle. To love, I began, my eyes sweeping the room, lingering on Claire and Lucas. To trust, and to those who stand by us. I paused, letting the words settle, heavy with meaning only they catch. I clicked the remote, and the screen shifted again, a clearer text exchange, no names but unmistakably theirs, projected for all to see. Gasps broke the silence. My aunt's face tightened. My mother's hand gripped her napkin. Claire's cheeks drained of color, her eyes wide, searching mine. Lucas stared at the table, his jaw locked. No jokes to save him now. I kept speaking, my tone unchanged. This wedding is a celebration of truth, I said, raising my glass. So let's be honest. I nodded to the servers, who passed out the wedding programs I printed, each one with a hidden page, a single, damning text exchange, no blur this time. Guests flipped to it, their murmurs growing sharper. Claire's hand shook as she opened hers, her breath catching. Lucas tried to stand, to say something, but his voice caught, drowned by the weight of eyes on him. I stayed calm, my face a mask of quiet resolve, as if I were merely toasting love, not dismantling their lies. The room fractured. My father stood, his voice low, asking Lucas to explain. Claire's mother pulled her aside, her whispers harsh. Guests stared, some at me, some at the screen, piecing together the betrayal. I set my glass down, my toast complete, and stepped back, letting the truth do its work. Claire reached for my arm, her eyes pleading, but I met her gaze, unyielding. Not now, I said, soft but final. Lucas tried to approach, his face a mix of shame and panic, but I turned away. They played their parts for months. Now was my turn. As the dinner dissolved into chaos, I walked to the bar, ordered a whiskey, and sipped it slowly. The room behind me buzzed with accusations, but I felt no need to watch. My plan had unfolded exactly as I'd drawn it, precise and poetic. They thought they could hide. They were wrong. They looked confident, until I walked in. The rehearsal dinner's wreckage settled like dust in a quiet room. The wedding was canceled by morning, the venue informed, the guests notified with a brief, vague email about unforeseen circumstances. Portland's rain kept falling, but for the first time in weeks, I felt the air clear. Claire packed her things from our apartment, her eyes red, her voice silent as she avoided my gaze. Lucas called once, leaving a voicemail I deleted unheard. I didn't need their apologies or explanations. The truth was out, raw and undeniable, and it had done its work. I moved through the days with a strange lightness. My family rallied around me, their anger at Claire and Lucas sharper than my own. My mother stopped inviting Lucas to Sunday dinners, her silence louder than any lecture. My aunt and uncle, Lucas's parents, sent me a long text, their shame palpable, but I didn't respond. I wasn't cruel, just done. Friends who'd been at the dinner whispered about Claire's tearful exit, Lucas's stammered excuses, but I didn't join their gossip. I'd said enough with the slideshow, the programs, the toast. My revenge wasn't loud, it was final. At the studio, I buried myself in work, designing with a focus I hadn't felt in months. Clients praised my new edge, the way my minimalist lines carried a quiet weight. I didn't tell them it came from loss, from learning to rebuild on broken ground. I moved out of the apartment, trading it for a smaller loft with bare walls and a view of the river. It felt like a fresh page, one I could sketch on my own terms. I sold the engagement ring, using the money to buy a new drafting table, a small act of reclaiming what was mine. Claire tried to reach out once. A letter slipped under my door, her handwriting shaky. She wrote of regret, of love she swore was real, but I didn't read past the first line. I burned it in the sink, watching the paper curl into ash, the smell sharp and final. Lucas vanished from our circles, his social media silent, his name a ghost at family gatherings. I heard he'd moved to Seattle, chasing a fresh start, but I didn't care to confirm. They were no longer my story. I walked Portland streets alone now, the same paths I'd taken with Claire, with Lucas, but they felt different. The ache was still there, faint, like a bruise fading. I didn't hate them. I didn't have the energy for hate. I dismantled their lies with precision, not rage, and that was enough. I trusted too deeply once, built a future on fragile ground, but now I knew better. I wasn't rebuilding the same life. I was crafting something new, something mine. Sitting at my new table, sketching under the hum of a single lamp, I felt a quiet peace. The rehearsal dinner had been my closing stroke, not of vengeance, but of control. I'd taken back my narrative, line by line. The world kept turning, and I kept drawing, each design a step toward a future I define alone. I wasn't trying to win. I was ending it. Months passed, and Portland's rain gave way to spring, the city blooming in greens I hadn't noticed before. I was still Elias, 29, a graphic designer, but the man I saw in the mirror felt new, sharper, unburdened. My loft by the river was home now, its bare walls slowly filling with my sketches, each one a piece of a life I was rebuilding. The betrayal, the rehearsal dinner, Claire and Lucas, they were shadows, fading in the light of what I'd made for myself. Work became my anchor. My designs caught attention, landed me a contract with a local brewery, their labels now carrying my clean lines and bold contrasts. Clients called my work soulful, unaware it was born from breaking and mending. I worked late nights, not to escape, but to create, the hum of my loft's quiet comfort. I'd sip coffee, the river glinting outside, and feel a pride I hadn't known before. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, my hands shaping a future no one could take. I started running again, something I'd abandoned during the wedding chaos. Mornings along the Willamette, my breath steady, my step sure, cleared the last fog of pain. I'd pass couples, families, and feel no pang, only a quiet gratitude for my solitude. I reconnected with old friends, ones untainted by the past, sharing beers and laughs at dive bars. They didn't ask about Claire or Lucas, and I didn't offer. My family, too, moved forward. Sunday dinners were warmer, my parents' smiles softer, no longer shadowed by what was lost. I heard fragments of Claire and Lucas's lives, not by seeking, but through the grapevine. Claire had left teaching, moved somewhere inland, her name rarely mentioned. Lucas was still in Seattle, working some sales job, his charm dimmed by the weight of his choices. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, no need to gloat. The rehearsal dinner had been my line in the sand, a moment to reclaim my truth, not to destroy them. Their consequences were their own. One evening, I sat on my balcony, a sketch pad in my lap, the city's lights reflecting on the water. I drew without aim, lines curving into something free, unforced. I thought about trust, how it had broken me, but also how it had taught me. I didn't need Claire's love or Lucas's loyalty to be whole. I had my work, my runs, my quiet nights. I had myself, and that was enough. The pain had been a forge, shaping me into someone stronger, someone who knew his worth. I set the sketch pad down, leaning back in my chair, the air cool against my skin. The wedding, the betrayal, the revenge, they were chapters closed, their weight lifted. I wasn't the man who'd trusted blindly, nor the one who'd planned in silence. I was Elias, now, writing a story no one else could touch. The future stretched ahead, blank and open, and I was ready to fill it. I didn't need their apologies. I had myself.